This title is narrated with virtual voice, computer-generated narration for audiobooks. Stranger Things and the '80s by Joseph Vogel. Introduction. We never wanted to wink at the audience. We wanted it to feel like one of those movies would have felt back then. Matt Duffer. The beginning of the end. As a child of the '80s, Stranger Things hooked me from the opening titles, the eerie red glow of the title font straight out of a Stephen King paperback, the moody analog synths pulsing like a forgotten John Carpenter score, the flicker of film grain. It hit all the right notes. It was like someone had pulled it out of a vault, or maybe the back shelf of an Indiana video store. As a series, Stranger Things can be classified as many things: sci-fi, horror, coming-of-age, teen drama, comedy, action-adventure. But it is, perhaps above all, a tribute to an era, as the show description puts it, a love letter to the '80s. When the series first premiered in the summer of 2016, no one could have predicted what it would become. Nearly a decade later, on the eve of its fifth and final season, it stands not only as Netflix's most successful original series, but as one of the defining stories of the streaming era, a cultural touchstone that crossed generations, continents, and platforms. Its imagery and sounds have become modern folklore: Christmas lights blinking like Ouija boards, kids racing down misty suburban streets on BMX bikes, 11, nose bleeding, hand outstretched, Kate Bush's running up that hill, swelling toward redemption. But there's no question a huge part of its appeal is the decade it revives and remixes, the 1980s. That's what this book is about, not just a list of Easter eggs or pop trivia, but how the show actually captures the mood and texture of an era. A cultural phenomenon. From its debut, Stranger Things felt different. It was equal parts E.T. and Goonies, Stand By Me and Firestarter, a story that felt both new and somehow remembered. The cast was mostly unknown. There were no stars, no franchise tie-ins, just an original story about a small town and the monsters beneath its surface. Netflix barely advertised it ahead of its first season. There were no billboards or talk show blitzes, just a haunting trailer, a handful of whispers, and word of mouth that spread like wildfire. Within weeks, it was being called the show of the summer. Within months, it was a global obsession. Since then, the numbers have become almost mythic: billions of hours streamed, more than 60 Emmy nominations, and a fervent fan base that spans from Sao Paulo to Seoul. But numbers don't explain why parents, teens, and kids watch it together, or why its music, fashion, and slang ripple across generations. Stranger Things united viewers who grew up with John Hughes and those who discovered The Clash on Spotify. It made the '80s feel alive again. The show's cultural footprint is vast. Before 2016, no one had heard of Eleven or Chief Hopper or Steve Harrington, all now household names. The Upside Down, Hawkins Laboratory, and Demogorgons weren't yet part of our cultural lexicon. The series turned Hawkins, Indiana, into a shared world language. It made stars of Millie Bobby Brown, Finn Wolfhard, and Sadie Sink. It resurrected Winona Ryder and even propelled an obscure 1985 pop song back to #1 on the global charts. Halloween costumes, Funko Pops, immersive experiences, Stranger Things became not just a show, but a world people wanted to live in. The Duffer Brothers. Among the most remarkable facts about the show is how it began. Matt and Ross Duffer, identical twins from North Carolina, were barely 30 when they sold Stranger Things to Netflix. Before the hit show, they'd made a single low-budget horror film, Hidden, and written for the series Wayward Pines. Their idea for Stranger Things, then titled Montauk, named after the Long Island town where Jaws was based, was simple but risky. In its early broad strokes, a period-based, missing-person story featuring some supernatural elements and government conspiracies. They wrote a rough version of the pilot episode, along with a 20-page proposal, hopeful about its prospects. Every studio turned them down, until Netflix. In late 2014, the script...
Para seguir escuchando este audiolibro gratuitamente, haz clic en el enlace de la descripción y podrás escucharlo completo sin coste gracias a la prueba de 30 días de Audible.